record. Oh, and we want this. Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome along. Welcome to our How Young is Too Young as part of the Bowel Cancer New Zealand Never Too Young campaign. I've got some amazing young people here who are absolutely amazing, just given up their time to tell their stories and just kind of let you know a little bit about, what goes on if and when you're diagnosed with bowel cancer and at various different stages as well. So my name's Victoria. I am the bowel cancer support nurse. So I am at the end of the phone and chats and anything else that people happen to find along their way. With me tonight, I have Hayley, who is all the way from the tippy bottom of the south down just out of Gore. She's got her fire lit tonight because apparently it's quite cold down there. Hayley was diagnosed in her mid-ish 30s and has some absolutely beautiful kids. I've got Amy Rose, who is up here in Auckland. And I think she's brought along some support people with her, which is amazing. And Amy Rose has also been really helpful for us with going on TV recently. So she is our star member. We're going to have a big star put on her door for her. And then I have Donald, and he is also based up here in Auckland. And Donald, believe it or not, has done the Taupo Cycle Challenge, wasn't it, Donald? And did a whole lot of fundraising for us. And I see that challenge is coming back up again. No, I'm not doing that one. I've done a half marathon, and that's quite enough. Thank you very much. So those are our three speakers this evening. And so what I'm going to do is let them introduce themselves a little bit further, and then we're just going to have a bit of a chat about, kind of their journey, their treatments, and how they're actually going at the moment. So Hayley, because you're first on my line, I'm going to start with you. So if you'd like to just give a quick introduction, a little bit about kind of, what was going on in your life at the time, and, just kind of let that kind of thing, would be awesome.
Okay. I was diagnosed 4 years ago when I was 34, and I just had my second daughter, so she was 5 weeks old, and I was sort of a sudden case. I just didn't really have too many symptoms. I think they are probably masked a lot through pregnancy because I have another daughter there's only 12 months between my two girls. And I just woke up one morning with horrific stomach pain down my right side and went to the doctor, and they were pretty sure my appendix had burst and sent me straight down to the hospital. And even the doctors down there were like, yep, it's definitely your appendix. Like, got ready to go to theatre to have my appendix out, and that's when the big surgeon came out and said no. So, yeah. Wow. That was about the start of the story.
Wow, that's one of kind of really amazing stories that, you're so fresh out of having another baby, and as you say, where symptoms can sometimes get masked a little bit because, you're kind of thinking, well, I've just had a baby, of course I'm tired, I might have these things going on. So interesting. Thank you for that. Amy Rose, you are next on my amazing screen. So if you could do something very similar, that would be amazing.
Hi, Amy Rose. I was going to say alcoholic, but that's not a good joke to make. So I was diagnosed last year at the age of 29. Looking back, I may have had some symptoms, mainly diarrhea-based, but I've also been on a journey of gluten and dairy free, and all of the symptoms that I had would mask, like if I had a cheeseburger. I was like, oh, okay, this sort of matches up. My sister was getting a colonoscopy because of some health issues that she was having, and the surgeon recommended that I have one. I went in going, oh, yeah, that'll be fine, and came out with a suspicious area, which I knew would probably be cancer, but that was the longest 6 days of my life, I think. And yeah, it turns out I had a 6.5 centimeter tumor in my bowel. Fun times for me. Yeah, that's sort of my diagnosis story.
Wow. Wow. Gosh. Thank goodness for your sister then, really, that she was kind of having one done and they thought that they, sort of think to do you at the same time. So
I feel very lucky. I've actually got a tattoo on my arm that says, oh gosh, this is not going to be good on Zoom, that says Bex is my hero. Because without her, I don't know where I'd be today.
oh, that's so lovely.
She's on the Zoom.
She'll pay you later. And Donald, your story as well. Another young gentleman who was diagnosed at a way too early age.
Yeah, so I got my family basically, we lost my sister-in-law the year before I was diagnosed to bowel cancer. My brother-in-law, his wife passed away, and then we were about to go on a big trip over to Canada as a family. And I just had some loose bowel motions, and so I thought, oh yeah, just probably hemorrhoids or whatever. But I think it had gone on for a couple of weeks, so I thought I'd better go get checked. My doctor, whom I have always said a good GP is gold, and she saved my life because she thought, well, it's probably just hemorrhoids and some other issues. We had a stool test, and she suggested that. Getting a colonoscopy. I was very lucky and was able to get straight away because of insurance. And I woke up and my wife was sitting next to me. She got called in and the doctor came out and said, found a mass, found some polyps, and I'm incredibly confident it's cancer. So I was able to get seen the following week and it was cut out. And my story's I'm very, very lucky. That's all that was needed to happen was that surgery. But because my doctor had the foresight to just to check, just in case.
Wow. Yeah, and to be able to be seen quite so quickly is also like a huge thing. We know that bowel cancer can be quite slow growing. Particularly in those of us that aren't in our 20s and 30s anymore. However, that, it can become quite explosive quite quickly if it's not kind of checked out really, really quickly. So, yeah. Hayley, just going back to you kind of quickly, what sort of how was your initial journey through that? Once you'd been to the GP, you've got your diagnosis, kind of where did that take you after that?
So I was in the hospital and I ended up having a right hemicolectomy about 2 days after they thought it was my appendix. And then the doctors were pretty certain that they'd removed cancer, but obviously you've got to have that wait time where they won't confirm it. I was sort of like hoping for the best, like surely it's not cancer, I'm way too young. So it was a really quick turnaround. So about 2 weeks later, I think I got my results back and it was stage 3C. So my bowel had actually ruptured, which had caused all my stomach pains, and it had spread to 4 lymph nodes. So, yeah, I started chemotherapy pretty quickly after my surgery, which I do not recommend.
Yeah, your body kind of needs a little bit of downtime between one thing and the next, really, doesn't it?
And the surgeons were like, no, it's too soon to start. But the oncologist was like, no, you're young, you need to start now. And I was like, oh, okay, who do I listen to here?
Oh, wow. Yeah. And just for those who might not know, can you let us know what is a right hemicolectomy? What does that actually involve?
So I probably don't really know how to explain it very well. As far as I know, they've removed the right side of my bowel. Yeah. So I didn't have to have a bag or anything, which I was really fortunate with. I was, able to be joined up that day. So, yeah, I was pretty lucky there.
Wow. And did you find that even with that and not having the bag, have you found things have never quite gone back to kind of normal as far as, bowels go after all that?
Yeah, definitely. I think probably in the last year I'm starting to feel like I'm sort of getting a bit normal, but definitely have times where I'm like, I am not normal. I can't pinpoint what it is that triggers me sometimes, but yeah, there is certain foods that will set me off. And I suppose when you've got a smaller bowel now, you've got to be quick to get to the toilet.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a common issue for a lot of people, is that having to get places quite quickly, and not having that kind of time to get things. But there's the other thing that you hear is that bowels will be going along swimmingly for quite some time, and then for some unexplained reason, you can't think why, they just have a day where they don't go along swimmingly. And
yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah. Bowels are very temperamental.
Very.
Very, very temperamental.
Yes. Mine was very upset after the surgery anyway. It was not a good time.
No. But you've got this far, and yay, you're gonna get better from here on out. So, and Amy Rose, just for you, I know that you're still kind of in the midst of some of this kind of stuff and things that are going on. So tell us a little bit about, from your diagnosis, kind of, how your journey looked from that moment on. And did you kind of have, you said that you were kind of getting rid of dairy and gluten and things like that out of your diet anyway. Had you really kind of noticed any symptoms prior to kind of going and having your colonoscopy and stuff done?
So unfortunately for me, cancer is not a new topic in my family. My mum actually passed away when I was 12 from GIST, which I thought was bowel cancer, but apparently it started in her stomach, but pretty much she had a PET scan and lit up like a Christmas tree. So when I was first diagnosed, I heard, okay, tumor, surgery, okay, that's, the norm. But after my surgery, I had a post-anterior resection, which I think is where they removed like part of my bowel. Part of my large intestine. I don't know which part, but enough of it. But unfortunately for me, when they tested my lymph nodes, 19 out of 20 of them tested positive for cancer. I've always been in a high percentile, and unfortunately this time is no exception. I've also got something called the BRAF mutation, which I'm not 100% sure what that means, but it's not really good news. So for me, it's been a very interesting journey. I actually started doing dairy and gluten because I was having problems with acne. And removing dairy and gluten cleared all that up. So I was like, oh, okay, it's just like an intolerance. I've got two brothers, and later in life, they became lactose intolerant, so I just thought it was my turn. How I wish it was that. And so for me, it was, oh, okay, I just got this intolerance. I just have to be careful, and that's about it. It was only when I had the colonoscopy and then got that news that I went, oh, right, this is what I think it is. Unfortunately for me, I'm stage 4, which again, high percentile, never like to be in that club. And I've been through, is it rounds? There's like a right. So I've been through 2 rounds. I've just finished my 2nd round of chemotherapy, and I actually just had a PET scan today. My first round results were really good. We had dramatic shrinkage, and I'm just really hoping for the same thing again. But I know I've ridden the waves of cancer before, so I'm very aware of what that can look like. But yeah, it was definitely a big change, especially for my husband, who I like to call his family the family of livers, because they don't really have any illnesses in their family, whereas mine's kind of littered with them, shall we say.
Wow. Gosh, so, and have you tolerated the chemo reasonably well, Amy Rose? Have you had anything sort of any major side effects or anything like that from it?
So I was actually on a drug trial previous to chemo, but then I got kicked off for growth. Again, I'm just too good at my job. And the first round of chemo was rough. I was, I call them my trifecta, which is nausea, fatigue, and diarrhea. And everything was pretty much at an all-time high. I've got the best oncologist in the world. Shout out to Dr. Sanjeev, who, as soon as I came, I said to him, I was like, oh, things have not been good. He was like, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me? And from there, drastically reduced what we were doing. And I've managed to tolerate it a bit better, so I'm able to do what I love, which is go into school and teach and, you know, spend time with my family and friends and all things like that. But yeah, chemo is definitely next level. I take my hat off to anyone who's ever done it, because that's intense.
Wow. Donald, you, and I say this with the most respect, you managed to not have to go through chemo. But how did you find the surgery affected you? And have you got any sort of ongoing sort of things that have gone hand in hand with that?
I totally understand what you were saying about the bowel being a temperamental beast. I hope my wife doesn't hear this, but I can't eat ice cream well, because that's when it says yina. It's been. Oh, and I had the bowel resection, and it took me a while for the whole body to get used to it again, but it's sort of recovered now. Like, you know, I had cancer 4 years ago, and was when I was diagnosed, and I'm able to do most things that I used to do, including sit on a bike for under 4.5 hours. So but I'm also really aware that it's a special journey for myself, and I'm very lucky. And I'm so, it's really hard sometimes to put into words, but I know that many people aren't as lucky as my story. And so my heart just goes out to them. Just this week, actually, or last week, a very good friend of mine, I found out his mother-in-law has been diagnosed, and she's actually just last week had the operation. And it's because, again, her GP read something the week before that having anemia and muscle spasms in their legs can be an indicator of bowel cancer. So he said, we need to get you a colonoscopy, and they found it. So I think I try to be like with my friends. I've never talked about butts more in my life. And a whole bunch of my friends actually ended up getting tested, and another friend of mine found out she actually had bowel cancer because of the race and talking about it so much. So I'm very lucky and blessed in that way. But it's something that, like, of having seen family who have gone through chemo, like my sister-in-law for it knocks you, and my hat goes off to anyone that does that. And yeah,
it is. It's not the easiest thing to go through. I mean, I take my hat off to anyone that has to go through chemo as well. Some people seem to go through really, quote unquote, quite well, and others just suffer all of it. Hayley, did you? I don't think I asked you about side effects. Did you have issues when you were having anything ongoing post kind of chemo?
Yes. When I was on chemo, I got that really horrible, like, red hands and feet. I remember one day I could hardly walk. My feet were on fire. It was horrible. I can't remember what they called that. It was what that symptom was, but it had a special name. But yeah, and I got like the tingles on my fingers and toes too. And I think that after chemo for my toes to come right.
Yeah. It's neuropathy, just FYI.
Yeah.
Where the nerves just don't, they either overreact to absolutely everything, and a lot of people find that they get a real aversion to cold. I don't know if Hayley, you or Amy Rose, you had that real aversion to anything cold, touching cold, drinking cold, walking on cold, having, it can be a real issue, but also that just, either on fire or numb and not being able to feel like the end of fingertips and things like that. It can be another one of those kind of neuropathy side effects. And it can be ongoing for some time, sometimes. So.
Yeah.
I suppose the other thing I wanted to kind of just ask you all about is how things are kind of going for you now. Did you have support as you were kind of going through, and that's kind of how you've kind of got through to the other side? What kind of things did you have around you or in place, or what kind of things did you find from inside of you that you didn't realize you had until you kind of went through this? And Donald, I'm going to pick on you this time because I can.
I've got a pretty positive outlook on most things. And I was really lucky. My wife's a nurse. And in fact, I actually think I'm talking to a couple other people, I almost think it can be harder on those people who are around the people that are going through it, because she's a nurse, so she knew what the outcome was and the medical stuff. And it's still pretty raw with my sister-in-law, Emma Kate, when she passed. But I was really lucky, and I had a really supportive work. My colleagues were amazing, and the real community around us was really, really supportive.
I think having that support, and it's one thing I don't know. A lot of people have been following Di Henwood's story, and he often talks about the struggle for those around him who love him and who are caring for him, and having that kind of making sure that they're well supported, because it doesn't matter if you're medical or not. When it's personal, it's quite a different kettle of fish that you're kind of dealing with. So it is really super important that wives and partners and kids and mums and dads, when we're talking about young people, it's often mums and dads as well that are often involved with care as well.
My kids, we were pretty. Once we took a couple of days to process it, but I wanted our kids to be aware of what it was, and that what it was, and not that we explained it to them that I've something in me, I'm going to cut it out, and if it stays in me, it'll be really bad and I'll die. But we're going to cut it out, and then we're going to try and do it. And just to see them gather around me, that actually gave me a ton of strength. It was hard when they started climbing over me after the operation on the bed, but it was a really special time, and I was very, very lucky with my family and the support that I had around me as a community.
Wow, amazing. Amy Rose, what about you? I know that you've got sisters and things like that around, but you did also lose your mum at a young age, and that can kind of have ripples for a very long period of time. But what were your kind of support? How did you find that, and how have you been finding all of that kind of inner strength and inner ability to be able to go through and kind of come out the other side? And you're still smiling.
Honestly, this is the hardest thing I've ever been through. I didn't think I would ever get diagnosed at such a young age. I always knew that there would be a likelihood that I would have cancer just because of how prevalent it is in my family. But again, I thought this would be a problem I'd be dealing with in my 40s or in my 50s, not in, my 29s and my 30s. Initially, I had a huge wave of support, which was wonderful, and people just rallied around. They were like, we'll cook you dinner, we'll drive you places, we'll do this, we'll do that. And I was like, we all just need to pump the brakes. My husband, I love him, is an introvert, and all of this hello, we will help you, was very jarring for him because, of course, he was having to come to terms with his wife being diagnosed with a terminal illness. So I actually, before my surgery, I made like a little communication tree, which pretty much I would find out things. I would dictate that to my sister and my husband. They would tell people who would then tell other people. And my sister, I love her, she set up like literally visits for me, and I joined her onto our joint calendar, and I was like, right, we can have 2 visitors a day. You stay for an hour, you wear a mask if you need to, and then off you go. You do not bother her for any longer, which again was wonderful because it was a flood of support. Now I still get the same support. I mean, my family and my friends, they're always checking in on me. I have found, though, it is the people around me that, in my opinion, I think need the most support. My husband has recently started seeing a counsellor from the Cancer Society to sort of deal with the emotions and things and feelings that he is feeling around my diagnosis. But I actually talked to my dad, I think it was a couple of months ago, about this because I just called him up randomly one day and I said to him, you know, who was there for you 6 months after Mum died? You know, I didn't really have anyone, and that it really struck a chord, and I actually got really upset because I mean, I know I was 12 years old and I took Mum's death particularly hard, but I never thought about what happens to the people who are around, and really people closest to me to actually be like, please don't be. There are so many people out there who, and even with my husband actually reaching out to people, he has started to have people who will regularly check in on him, who will message him on days where I have scans or message him when they know that I have chemo. And I think just having those people there and aware makes it 100% easier. And I also made a Facebook page, so then I can just dump everything like, oh, these are my scan results, and I don't have to deal with the thousands of messages because I love them and I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful, but it can be a lot when you've got a lot of people wanting a lot of questions and I'm like, oh, I just need to process this myself, please give me a moment. And I feel for me that's actually worked out really well.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? I love the fact that people gather around so quickly, but sometimes it can just kind of dissipate without you even kind of noticing that it has dissipated a little bit, but all of a sudden you kind of go, oh. But it's really nice.
People get busy, people have other things going on, and I totally respect that. But I think sometimes I can be very humbling for people when they're like, oh man, work was horrible today, my boss was terrible, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually going to chemo tomorrow, and they're like, oh, and they feel like they can't complain about their lives because like, oh, here's a cancer patient over here, she's got a hard life too. Sorry, humor is my way that I deal with things. If I come across like I'm not being serious, I apologize because this is just how I manage to deal with my life now.
Hey, look, sometimes you've just got to, you know, I'm sure there are days where you don't laugh when you're saying I'm going through chemo and I'm having chemo tomorrow. I would put money on the fact that not every day is like that. But you know, as you say, sometimes it's okay. Okay. I know for you it was a completely different story because you had 2 wee babies, a really wee baby, and then one that was only a little bit over a year old when you were diagnosed. So the support that you had would have looked slightly different perhaps, but what did you have? What did you find really helpful? And again, asking you like I did Amy Rose, what have you kind of found within yourself that has helped you to kind of get to where you are now?
Yeah, I had amazing support from family and friends, and like, yeah, just the visitors and the meals and everything. It was actually overwhelming. Like, I can see where Amy Rose is coming from. Sometimes I was just like, please go away. Like, because like you're going through that period where you don't really have the answers that people want to know. It's like, it's quite hard, but you're trying to put on such a brave face for them because you don't want them to be upset, so you're trying to be happy all the time. And I really probably struggled I remember when I got to my first scan a year after I'd finished my treatment, and it come back clear, and I was like, should have been really happy, but that's when it really hit me that, oh my God, like, because all my support people had gone now, because they were like, well, you're all better, you're all good. And I was like, had to go and get some counselling. Like, that's where I really struggled and realised I probably didn't, I don't know what the right word is, but feel my emotions at the time that I was going through my treatment. And I was just too busy trying to be brave and, like, I'm going to beat this, it's all good, and trying to put on a brave face to everyone. And yeah, that's when I realised that I actually wasn't all right that last year, and that was bloody hard. It was a tough, tough year. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, with a brand new baby and a diagnosis, you just have to get up and keep moving every day. You kind of don't have a choice in that. So it would be understandable that, when you finally did have a moment to go, it did come in a little bit like a bit of a wave and hit you and catch you possibly a little bit off guard. Would that be about right, Hayley?
Yeah, definitely. I think I just let everything build up to a point, and it just sort of exploded in me. I just become sort of an emotional wreck and couldn't stop crying. I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I should be happy, but no, I had a lot of things I needed to deal with, and and that's where the counselling come in really good for me. So yeah,
I mean, grief is a funny thing, and we don't often use it when we're talking about cancer. But you've got to think that when you're diagnosed, there is a grieving that goes with that, because it takes away kind of, even if it's just for a short period of time, it does actually take away some of that kind of who you are and the futures that you had already planned, and then they kind of get changed and smushed, and it's not quite the same after that. So there is a grieving that goes with a diagnosis. Doesn't, any sort of cancer, but I think often bowel cancer too, because there's an invisible change to your body that not everybody sees. A lot of people with, even when they're going through chemo, maybe don't lose their hair or don't look sick. And so, it's very difficult to kind of show people that, actually I'm going through some stuff, and, just, kind of be okay with that. And, it is quite a different one. So there is that kind of grieving. And Hayley, I think that's potentially a little bit, you kind of have lost a little bit of those hugely important first parts with, a baby who was only 5 weeks old when you were diagnosed. So
yeah,
it is a big thing, and it's not something that we kind of talk about. But it's really nice to hear that, you got the support that you needed at the time when it did kind of hit.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, Hayley as well. Sorry to interrupt, Victoria. No one tells you how to, like, what happens after, like, once your scan has come back and cleared. No one talks about what that's supposed to look like. And I mean, I don't have any children, so I don't know what that would have been like. But I mean, that must have been huge for you, going from like, oh yay, I've got this new baby, this is so exciting, to, am I going to see this baby grow up? Am I going to see this baby? What am I going to see this baby do? To, oh, okay, you're all clear. Oh, you're fine now. Off you go. You're done. Like, I take my hat off to you, because that must have been, and good on you for going to get some help as well, because that's so important.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was just going to ask Donald. I noticed that you're conveniently on mute for a moment. Did you? Just kind of, did you have anything? I know you said you got a really positive attitude, but did it change for you when you kind of got your diagnosis? Did you have that moment where you went, oh, crumbs?
Yeah, I definitely dropped the whole oh shit bomb, and rightly so. I wasn't expecting it. I don't have any bowel cancer in my family, And yeah, it was when there was moments when, like, you do start worrying, go to the what ifs. You know, it was mostly I had a goodness, there would have been 8, no, it was like 7 and 5, maybe 4 at year-old kids, and you just, yeah, you want it. I did start worrying about what would happen to them occasionally, and I remember in the hospital room, lying there, just that in that silence, and it's like your brain does go to some dark places before you have to remind yourself that it's okay. What will be, you've got a journey, you're going to get there. And I think it's great that Amy, your husband, is getting counselling, and you got counselling as well, Hayley. I'm glad that the stigma of that is starting to peel away, because like I had my I think it was my third colonoscopy checkup a couple of weeks ago, and it was all clear, but they found some polyps, three polyps, and so I mean, I always, I joke about it, similar to yourself, Amy Rose. I remember telling my colleagues, and I was like, I've got some really crap news. There was a lot of potty jokes, and they kind of were like, are you honest about this? And I'm like, yeah, I am. I totally know what this, and I know what this means and could mean. But for me, it was about making sure that I wasn't just strong for others around, but for myself. And you have to be honest. You can't be like, everything's all fluffy dandruff and, oh, it's wonderful, I'll be fine. You have to address those questions, and so it is hard. Like, I totally agree with everything you guys were saying about the overwhelmingness. Have you had any news yet? I dreaded that sentence. I had to tell some of my family and friends, like, I will let you know. It's stop asking, because I will. That was quite hard, and I think sort of lying there in the room and those quiet times can feel quite lonely at times. But yeah, I was able, I think I just started to just go to the good places, think about what I had to fight for, and what I had to lay ahead, and hope for the best, and know that a positive outlook was going to do me better than not.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of nodding of heads and agreement from everybody. So just to because we'll be coming to the end of our time shortly. As far as kind of symptoms and things that are going on, would any of you have, and you can kind of jump in, I won't pick on anyone for this one. Would you have any advice for anyone who might be listening or watching this, as far as, either getting checked, or once they've had a diagnosis, that kind of immediate post-diagnosis thing? Has anyone got any advice that they would maybe wish they'd had when they were first diagnosed?
You go.
Yep.
Yeah. Get checked early, I think, is another one. I think, Donald, you said you kind of put yours off getting checked.
Yeah, I as soon as I noticed that something wasn't quite right, I did. And that's one thing I would say is, if in doubt, you don't have to get booked in for a colonoscopy straight away, but do a stool sample. Just talk to your GP, and if your GP says, oh, it'll just be hemorrhoids, go say no. It's just not worth it. The stigma for me around it is that it's an old person's disease, and I saw that it wasn't. My sister-in-law was in her very early 30s when she was diagnosed, and I mean, I was 40, but it's not, and it hits so many people, and I think we actually just forget about it, get over it, and just get tested. It's not that bad. I mean, I can't drink lemon flavored drinks now without reminding me of Prep Kit C. But I know I got given a sample of a electrolyte for training, and it was lemon. And I'm like, I didn't drink anything for that 60-kilometer ride that day. I was like, I couldn't do it. I could not do it. And then it's just, if your doctor isn't being helpful, just keep pushing. You need to actually, it's better safe than sorry. It's the thing. It's like a couple of days of discomfort for the purge, or and the procedure. It's nothing compared to go, oh, we found some polyps there. Oh no, you're fine. That's a win. That's 2 days of 2 inconvenient moments, and that's it. But it'll save your life if they find something.
Yeah, absolutely. I always still, I'm not quite sure who said it, and I'm going to have to ask Mary one day for permission, but, it's that whole don't die of embarrassment, isn't it? I mean, farts are funny when you're a 14-year-old. Sometimes they're still funny anyway. But it's not kind of it's not a topic we bring up at dinner. Us nurses, Donald, you're married to a nurse, you know what we're like. We can talk about anything during any meal and we just don't even bat an eyelid.
Anything.
But we realise that's not normal.
I was with a group of guys on a race. We did a bike race a few weeks ago, and they were commenting about how come this conversation around dinner table went to colonoscopies, or as my kids call it, butt cam. And yeah, it's healthy to have those discussions, and I wish more people would have it. I mean, it sounds silly to talk about bowel health, but what's the harm in it?
Yeah. Hayley, what would you say to, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, you know that, don't you? What would you maybe say to a new mum who has got something going? I mean, I know yours was a little bit extreme in that you had such bad pain because your bowel had actually kind of, burst around itself. But would you have any advice for young women who are either pregnant at the time or only just had a baby, around kind of, what happened with you and your diagnosis?
Yeah, I guess like when I got diagnosed with bowel cancer, like I just hadn't even heard of it. Like I was like, what? Like I wish I just had more knowledge around it. Like I think then I might have been like, hey, maybe this could be me, because I was super tired. And I did have like erratic bowel movements every now and again. And I think if I kind of knew that they were symptoms of bowel cancer, I might have brought it up with my midwife GP, but I just didn't know. It was probably my problem. And I think it's just getting the knowledge out there and getting people to talk like about it. Like I don't know, maybe midwives should just be asking. Like my midwife used to ask about bowel habits anyway, but I don't really know what the answer is there. Yeah, just get the word out there that just trying to talk about it as much as we can. Like it can happen to anyone.
Yeah, and I honestly think that's why these kind of things are so important, because there's a chance to be quite open and talk. And, it's one place you can have the crappy conversations and all the other jokes that you can kind of come up with, and it's okay, and it should be like I say, us nurses. The first question we usually ask anybody is, how are your bowels? And, the first response we usually get is they're going. And that's our first question. But it's being aware of your own normal, I think, too. I think listening to all of you talk, it's kind of, you all had a bit of an inkling that something wasn't potentially quite right. Hayley, you had, slightly erratic bowels for a little while, but it can be put down to something. Amy Rose, you had the same kind of thing, but it could have been food related, because you know, there was obviously some intolerances in your system anyway. And the same with you, Donald, you know, you kind of noticed that there was changes kind of going on before you went and got things checked out. So, you know, knowing what's normal for you, and, you know, I've had people that only poop once every 7 days. I'm like, goodness, brought tears to my eyes. But other people that go, you know, 2 or 3 times a day. So it's what's normal for you, and then knowing when what's normal for you isn't normal anymore. Going and have that looked at and checked out. Parting comments. I wanted to say thank you very much. You guys have been outstanding and amazing and incredibly generous and open. Amy Rose, any last final words?
Last words. I just, oh, it's so hard. How do I sum up everything I want to say? Sorry, my husband's laughing at me because he knows I can't stop talking. I think that, I mean, I really want to touch on what Donald said about when he said that he talked a lot about colonoscopies, and he actually had people who would go, who actually went and checked. And I mean, that is so valuable because, you know, you've saved someone's life by doing that. So, I mean, that's just so amazing. My usual joke is if you see someone with cancer, give them a hug. I hate hugs, so and all cancer has given me is hugs. But I think that you're right, and exactly what Hayley and Donald said, have the tough conversations, have the yucky conversations, talk about your poos, talk about your breasts, talk about your prostate, talk about whatever you need to talk about, because there shouldn't be any shame in it. I regularly have people ask, like, oh, how are you doing? How's the diarrhea going? And, you know, these are people who would never talk to me about these things. I've really tried to normalize talking about cancer because I think it's something that I'm going to have for a wee while. And I think that just if you know someone with cancer, just check up on them, send them a message. I like to send not committal messages. So I'll just say, this is a not committal message. Please don't feel the need to reply. Just know that I love you and I'm here for you. And if they want to reply, they can. And if they don't, hands off, and it's wonderful. For me, routine has been the most amazing thing. Unfortunately, I've had to give up my full-time job, but I'm still able to go and relieve. And that is the best part of my week because I go to school and I'm not, the cancer patient. I'm, Mrs. Yates, you're teaching us. Did you know on the weekend that I got a dinosaur? Blah, 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 blah. Like, they don't care. They just care about me, and I'm here and I'm going to listen to all their stories about dinosaurs. But yeah, it's just being there, being present, being available. And, you know, if I've sort of started preparing for the later stages of my life, shall we say, and for when I'm not here, and, you know, just making sure that I'm making the most of the time that I have now with the people that I love. And if you know someone with cancer, if you have cancer, I recommend you do the same.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Amy. Hayley, anything else that you'd like to add into this, what has been an amazing conversation?
I don't really know. I just think we need to keep talking about it. And yeah, I really like I think it's on the website, don't sit on your symptoms, like get the word out there. I like seeing the posters. I think I'm going to print some off and put them in the work toilet because I just wish I'd known 4 years ago. And I guess there's probably people out there now that may have symptoms and have no idea what bowel cancer is, like I was. So yeah, just getting the word out there is all we can do to help.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And look, we can probably send you some resources if you want to take them up all over the place, Hayley. We've probably got posters with all of that on it. So just let us know.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, please do. Hayley, Amy Rose and Donald, I want to thank you so much for your honesty and your openness and coming along tonight and sharing, you know, where you are, how you are, and just your stories. These things are incredibly impactful. Thank you to everyone else who's also come along. I'm actually going to stop recording. Just hold fire there for the moment, but thank you so much to all of you. I really appreciate your time.